Hi, my name is Jerry Massey, and if you've been tuning in to these videos, you know that I've been diagnosed with inoperable bile duct cancer, and I have a very large tumor running down the center of my liver. So the first good news, when I posted this on Facebook, um, right away, more than one person, but especially one man on the Tibetan Terrier site, said that he had gone to MD Anderson and he had an inoperable tumor, and they actually did like a marathon surgery and took it out. And when I went and looked on the MD Anderson site, I didn't find anything about that per se, but I found something about proton beam therapy, which is used for inoperable tumors, where the beam is proton heavy, and I don't understand the physics of how this works, but it's almost like if you think you're throwing a ball sack into something where an arrow would go straight through it. With the proton beam, they can aim it at the tumor, and it goes into the tumor, and it doesn't go through the rest of your body. And even the trail behind it is much lower radiation than the dose in the tumor. So they use this to target tumors very precisely and burn them down or shrink them down, destroy them. So this just to me looked like such a hopeful treatment if I had the right type of tumor, because tumors can vary like in mass, and some tumors you can't do this type of therapy with. But there is a clinical trial report out where University of Pennsylvania and MD Anderson and I think it's called Dana-Farber Cancer Center up in Boston, the three of them work together on the two types of liver cancer, HCC and ICC. And I have ICC, the more rare type, which is really bile duct cancer. And they reported success with ICC patients where after 2 years, the survival rate was more than 50%. So this is really what I want to do. And I'm today, probably this whole week, maybe even into next, I'm contacting places and seeing where I can get in for proton beam therapy. So that's great. I mean, that, really is good news for me, and I'm very hopeful. But I have been dealing with fear. I've been really having a problem with fear, which I'm disappointed in myself, but I do have friends that tell me that I'm too hard on myself about this. But I wanted to tell you something. If you just want an update, where's Jerry at with her cancer? That's the update. I don't have a place yet. I've just been talking with University of Pennsylvania Cancer Center, and I talked with MD Anderson this morning. I have a call in with University of Alabama, and I've electronically registered with a cancer center out in Missouri whose name escapes me right now. So that's that for that. But in terms of like my faith, I wanted to share this story. I'll keep this as brief as possible. When I went to Bob Jones University, which is a Christian fundamentalist university, they don't really like me anymore because I've been documenting clergy sex abuse cases in Christian fundamentalism. And Bob Jones University, while actually pretty good for, as far as fundamentalists go, at not having that on their campus, they have remained silent about it when clearly their leadership knew about cases. I'm thinking especially of the Bob Gray case in Trinity Baptist in Florida. They had to know about that one. And of course, Jack Hiles, his adultery, and his son Dave, what his son Dave was doing. So they don't really like me that much. But, let's take it back to really before then. I was 19, I was a sophomore, and I was very concerned about, could God love me? Like, could God love me? How could I know if God loved me? Because I really saw my faults pretty clearly, and or I don't know, maybe darker than most other people see them, but I had plenty, and I felt every day that I just wasn't measuring up to God, which is what fundamentalism likes. That's actually a means of being controlled in fundamentalism, where you're constantly feeling the wretchedness of your sin, and sin is wretched, but we have to have hope in God and confidence in God. So I was in this state. I couldn't fathom, did God really love me, or did he not love me? Was I just not that significant to him, or, could he love me? And we had, there was, at Bob Jones University, every 3 rooms made what's called a prayer group. And so every room had either an APC, which is an assistant prayer captain, or a prayer captain. So these 3 rooms, every night we'd get together for prayer meeting. But then on the hall, the whole hall had a prayer captain that was the hall monitor. And in some halls where I live, that was a pretty legalistic person who was there to crack the whip. But especially in my early years at BJU, it was almost like a chaplain, a women's chaplain, a student who was a senior, who just had a lot of spiritual maturity. So my sophomore year, we had Carol Brown, and she had a twin, as I have a twin, and was a little bit estranged from her twin, as I'm estranged from mine. And her twin brother died one Christmas vacation, and she waited till just about springtime, and then she gave a whole devotional, and she talked about this. I think he was killed in a car crash, and I missed it. I was working that night. But other people talked about it. They were so, and Carol said that the love of God was so evident to her that she didn't want to burden girls who she knew were struggling with, other issues that they had. Many girls, it was financial. They were so afraid they were going to have to drop out, and others, had family troubles. So she didn't want to burden them until she thought the hall was better. And then she shared this with the hall. And when my roommates told me about this, like, I was so stunned that she was that confident and comfortable in the love of God that she'd carried this around for 3 or 4 months. And at that time I was working on night watch. And so the girls' dorms at Bob Jones are like over here. And then here's the planetarium. The science building had a planetarium. So it had this white domed building. And way over here, you have the guys' dorms. And then behind them, Westgate, which was sort of like the headquarters for security. So when my job was to patrol the dorms from 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock on a foot patrol, wearing a skirt. And dinner was 6 to 6:20, and it was mandatory at that time. Everybody had to go to dinner unless you had a written work excuse not to. And as I was night watch, I did, but nobody was on campus from 6 to 6:20, and it was a good time for security. Really, 6 to 6:30, you could go do a lot of stuff quickly, like lock unlock schedule, where you weren't having to navigate traffic or other students. And so we did do a lot, that had to get done. But it was basically a time where the only people on campus out and about were like 4 security people, 2 night watch people, and 2 security people if they were doing a patrol, but they might just be in the gatehouse. So I would have to walk all the way from over here, all the way to Westgate over here to get my equipment, which was a belt, a punch clock, I think a can of mace. I don't know, maybe I had some, I don't think I carried any weapon apart from that. So, and my walkie-talkie. So I would walk all the way across campus. And while I was going all the way across campus to go pick up my equipment to start at the dorms at 6 o'clock, everybody else would be going to dinner. So walking along and pretty much having privacy, and I'm praying as I walk, and I'm saying, well, I talked to Carol about this, and I said, how do you know? How do you know God loves you? How do you know? And she said, almost every day there's something God gives me that's just for me. And I was like, what? And she said, it's just for me. It could be a flower or some kind word, but I know the Lord has that just for me. And she said, I get a lot of joy from that. I know that God loves me because of these telltale signs he gives me. So I'm walking along, going down to Westgate, and I said, I said, Lord, could we just get this settled? If you love me like you love Carol, because I didn't doubt at all that he loved Carol, because everybody loved Carol. If you love me like you love Carol, could you show me something? Could you? And then, we know Jesus says a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. So we're not really supposed to search for signs. And I felt bad about that. So it's sort of like, could you show me this sign? But Lord, if you can't, could you forgive me for asking you to show me this sign? And I'm all the way down to, the half mile down to Westgate House. I'm praying like this. And then I picked up my equipment and I'm coming all the way back. And remember, the planetarium's here. And by now, the campus is emptying as everybody goes over that way to the dining common, the dining hall, which was, this massive dining hall that could accommodate all the students. And I'm walking along, it's getting quieter and quieter, and the sky was grayish with peaks of sunlight piercing through, and then we'd have the gray. So I'm walking along and I'm approaching the planetarium and I'm saying, Lord, if I could just see something from you where it's just for me. So I would know it's just for me. I'm not kidding about this. I got to the corner where the planetarium was. I was 1 block from the women's dorms. It was 6 o'clock exactly. The campus was empty. And looked up, and in the sky there was a rainbow, but it wasn't a rainbow that like arced to the earth far away. It was like a rainbow that arced, like there's 2 clouds up here, and it just arced to the 2 clouds, and the rainbow was fully reflected in the planetarium dome, the white dome of the planetarium. It was the most beautiful thing you could ever see, and I was the only person who saw it right at the moment that I was asking God to show me something like this. And at the time, I was awed, but I was also afraid, because I felt that God was right there, that this person who I'm thinking I'm yelling to is right there with me. And immediately I said, please forgive my sins, because I'm a sinner, because I really felt the presence of our holy God, and I guess the unworthiness of why would God do that for me? And the only reason is out of the abundance of the fullness of his love, he loves. And I that just worked. It was such a shock to me. It was just it was an amazing thing. So now I've got cancer. It bothers me that, having had an experience like this, I still feel fear. I still feel a fear that when you take that last high jump, there's nothing there. And yet I know, before, when I was close to death in a situation before, I knew God was there. So why this now? So I wanted to share this, I guess, to give you the perspective. I wanted you to understand the things that God has done in my life, because God is so good. But also, again, I don't want to lie or be inauthentic to people. I am clinging to my faith. I am holding forth my faith. But yes, I do feel fear about what is ahead, definitely. So again, I appreciate your prayers. Um, I appreciate your comments. I've gotten emails from people who I haven't heard from in a while. That makes me very happy. That really touches me. And if I haven't gotten in contact with you, it's just because today it is like wall-to-wall contact trying to get the protein beam therapy. But I plan to reach out to everybody who reaches out to me, and I really look forward to speaking with you and hopefully seeing your face in person or on Zoom, if we can only Zoom. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. Many people have just given me wonderful advice like this, like the proton beam therapy, and people have said, get a second opinion, which I'm doing. So thank you so much. There is a lot of love out there. And I really had my face very much towards all the hate and the lust and the destruction, but there is a lot of love and kindness out there. And I'm glad, to have seen it. So Lord willing, I'll post again when there's more information to give. Bye-bye.